I never imagined I'd become the woman whose husband walks into a restaurant with another woman on their child's birthday. But here I am, Mia Jackson, formerly Mia Williams from a middle-class neighborhood in Los Angeles, now the wife of one of South Korea's most powerful tech billionaires. Or at least I was, until the night everything shattered like the crystal glasses at Hanul restaurant. I spent 3 months planning Jin's 7th birthday. 3 months of careful preparation while my husband Sungmin barely looked up from his empire. 3 months of promising our son that this year would be different, that Appa would definitely be there this time. I lied to my child because I wanted to believe it myself. Because after 7 years of marriage to Sungmin Park, I still hadn't accepted that I was nothing more than an accessory in his perfectly curated life. Jin was born in winter, when Seoul is at its most beautiful and most brutal. The day he came into the world, Sungmin was in Singapore closing a deal. He arrived at the hospital 20 hours later, immaculate in his tailored suit, not a hair out of place, looking at our son like he was examining a product prototype. "He has my mother's eyes," he said, and that was it. No tears, no overwhelming emotion, just clinical assessment. I should have known then, but love makes fools of even the most careful women. The morning of Jin's birthday, he woke up before dawn, shaking me gently. "Yama, is it time yet?" His eyes were wide with anticipation, his small hands clutching the edge of my silk pajamas. I gathered him into my arms, breathing in the scent of his hair, the innocence that still clung to him despite his father's increasing absence. "Yes, baby. Happy birthday," I whispered, fighting back tears. "Today is your special day." He grinned, that beautiful smile that still held perfect trust in the world. "Is Appa coming home early? He promised last time." The knife twisted. Sungmin had indeed promised, 2 weeks ago during one of his rare dinners at home. "Of course I'll be there for his birthday," he had said dismissively, as if the question itself was ridiculous. "I'm not missing my son turning 7. I smiled at Jin, smoothing his hair. "Appa said he'll meet us at the restaurant tonight. He's picked a very special place." Another lie. I had chosen Hanul, not Sungmin. I had made the reservation, arranged for the cake, chosen Jin's outfit. Sungmin had merely texted his approval and transferred money to my household expenses account, the way one might authorize a business expenditure. I spent the day making Jin feel like the center of the universe. Pancakes shaped like stars for breakfast. A trip to Latte World where I let him ride everything twice. I bought him the robot toy he'd been eyeing for months, ignoring the price tag because today wasn't about money. It was about making memories strong enough to withstand the growing coldness in our home. As evening approached, my stomach tightened with familiar anxiety. I hadn't heard from Sungmin all day, not even a text acknowledging Jin's birthday. While Jin was choosing his outfit, the blue suit jacket that made him look like a miniature version of his father, I called Sungmin's office. "Mr. Park is in meetings all afternoon," his assistant said, her voice professionally distant. She'd been working for him for 6 months, the 4th assistant this year. They never lasted long. "I'll remind him about dinner tonight. Please tell him Jin has been asking about him all day," I said, hating the pleading note in my voice. When did I become this woman? When did I start begging for scraps of attention from my own husband? "Of course, Mrs. Park," she replied, and I could hear the pity. Everyone in Sungmin's orbit knew exactly what kind of marriage we had. By 6 o'clock, Jin was vibrating with excitement as our driver pulled up to Hanul. The restaurant occupied the top floor of one of Seoul's most prestigious buildings, all glass and steel with the Han River glittering below. Jin pressed his face to the window of the elevator as we ascended 60 floors. "Yama, we're flying," he gasped, and for a moment, my heart felt lighter. This was why I stayed. This was why I endured the lonely nights, the cold shoulders, the whispers behind manicured hands at charity events. For Jin, for his happiness. The hostess recognized me immediately. Everyone recognized the Park family in certain circles. "Mrs. Park, welcome to Hanul. We have your table ready by the window, as requested." Jin's eyes widened as we walked through the restaurant. Crystal chandeliers reflected in polished marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Seoul's skyline, now twinkling with evening lights. It was beautiful, intimidating, perfect. Exactly the kind of place Sung-min preferred. Places where money whispered rather than shouted. "Where's Appa?" Jin asked as we were seated, his small fingers smoothing the crisp white tablecloth. I checked my phone. Nothing. "He's on his way, sweetheart. You know how busy he is." Jin nodded solemnly. At 7, he already understood the weight of his father's importance in ways no child should have to. Because he runs a big company and makes important things. "That's right," I said, swallowing the bitterness that rose in my throat. "But tonight is about you." I ordered Jin's favorite foods, bulgogi, japshi, and the fancy chocolate cake I'd arranged weeks ago. We took pictures together, his smile growing a little dimmer each time he glanced at the empty chair beside us. I texted Sung-min 3 times. No response. Finally, my phone buzzed. A single text. "In meetings. Can't make it. Tell Jin happy birthday." The words blurred as tears threatened. 7 years of birthdays, and Sung-min had missed 5 of them. But this one hurt more because he had promised. Because I had believed him. Because Jin had spent the entire day practicing what he would say to his father. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall before the tears could fall. How had this become my life? I, who had graduated top of my class at UCLA, who had dreams of my own before meeting the charming Korean businessman at a tech conference in San Francisco. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Designer dress, perfect makeup, hollow eyes. The golden handcuffs were beautiful but suffocating. When I returned to the table, Jin was arranging his utensils in perfect rows, a nervous habit he'd developed. "Appa's not coming, is he?" he asked, not looking up. "Gina," I began, reaching for his hand. "Appa has to work late, but he sends his love," and the restaurant doors opened. My head turned automatically, a reflex born from years of hoping, waiting. And there he was, Sung-min Park, my husband, Jin's father, walking through the entrance of Hanul with perfect confidence. His hand resting on the lower back of a woman I recognized immediately. Han Soo-yoon, rising actress, face of luxury cosmetic brands. 26 years old and radiantly beautiful in a way that made my carefully maintained appearance feel like a child's crayon drawing. The world didn't stop. The other diners didn't gasp. The waiters didn't drop their trays. But inside me, something collapsed completely. A building whose foundation had finally given way after years of invisible cracks. "Mom!" Jin's voice pierced through the roaring in my ears. "Is that Appa?" Couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. Could only watch as Sung-min guided Soo-yoon toward a private table on the opposite side of the restaurant, his hand possessive on her back. He was smiling. Actually smiling. The rare expression I had once treasured like a precious stone. "Mom?" Jin tugged my sleeve, confusion clouding his face. Why is Appa here with someone else? Did he forget about my birthday? The hostess was leading them to their table. They hadn't seen us yet. Sung-min was leaning close to Soo-yoon, whispering something that made her laugh softly. The kind of intimate gesture I hadn't received in years. Then it happened. Jin stood up. "APPA," he called out, his small voice carrying across the hushed restaurant. Everything froze. Sung-min looked up, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock as he registered us. Soo-yoon's smile faltered, her eyes darting between Sung-min and us with growing comprehension. The restaurant fell silent, dozens of wealthy patrons suddenly witnessing a drama more compelling than any Korean television series. Sung-min's face hardened into the mask I knew too well. He whispered something to Soo-yoon, then straightened his tie, always the businessman, and walked toward our table. "Mia," he said coolly, as if we had bumped into each other at a corporate event. "Jin, I didn't expect to see you here." Jin stared up at his father, betrayal written across his small face. "It's my birthday, Appa. You promised." Sung-min blinked, the only sign that he had forgotten completely. Then his expression smoothed over. Of course, I was just finishing a business meeting before joining you. A business meeting. That's what he was calling it. The rage rose so fast I thought I might choke on it. With Han Soo-yoon? I asked, my voice unnaturally calm. Is she investing in Park Technologies now? His eyes flashed a warning. Mia, not here. Jean was looking between us, confusion turning to distress. Appa, are you going to sit with us? Yama ordered cake. Something flickered across Sungmin's face. Regret? Shame? Whatever it was vanished quickly. Gina, Appa needs to finish his meeting first. I'll join you shortly. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I wondered how many times he had told similar ones. How many business meetings had there been? How many women? How many nights had I waited while he was with someone else? You're not coming back to this table, I said quietly, the certainty in my voice surprising even me. Go back to your meeting, Sungmin. Jean and I are celebrating without you. His jaw tightened, the only visible sign of anger. Sungmin never lost control in public. We'll discuss this at home. There's nothing to discuss, I replied, reaching for Jin's hand. Happy birthday to our son, whom you couldn't remember until you saw him in person. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. You're embarrassing yourself. And me. That's when something inside me snapped. 7 years of shrinking myself, of apologizing, of pretending not to see the cracks in our marriage. 7 years of raising our son practically alone while Sungmin built his empire and collected accolades. No, I said, standing slowly. You've done that yourself. I turned to Jean, whose eyes were filling with tears. Sweetheart, let's go somewhere else for dessert. As we walked out of Hanul, past Soo-yoon who couldn't meet my eyes, past the pitying glances of Seoul's elite, past the life I thought I had secured, I felt Jin's small hand tighten in mine. Why doesn't Appa love us anymore? He whispered, and the question broke whatever was left of my heart. I had no answer then, but I would find one, and it would change everything. The drive home from Hanul was silent except for Jin's occasional sniffles. Our driver, Mr. Kim, kept glancing in the rearview mirror, his eyes full of concern. He had worked for the Park family for 5 years. He knew something monumental had happened. Mrs. Park, he said softly as we approached our building. Would you like me to take you somewhere else? Perhaps to your friend Mrs. Lee's home. I considered it. Jaeun had been my closest friend since moving to Korea, the only person who saw through the glossy veneer of my marriage. But tonight, I needed to face what was coming. No, thank you, Mr. Kim. We're going home. Our penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of one of Gangnam's most exclusive residential buildings. When I first moved in as a new bride, I had wandered the rooms in awe, running my fingers over imported marble countertops and custom silk wallpaper. Now, as the elevator ascended to the 40th floor, I felt like I was entering a beautiful prison. Jean fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from emotion. I tucked him into bed, still wearing his birthday clothes, and sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. I wondered how much of his father lived inside him, and if those parts would someday turn cold too. I was still sitting there when Sungmin came home, hours later. I heard the elevator doors open, the sound of his shoes on the marble floor, the clink of his keys in the crystal dish by the door. Familiar sounds that once brought comfort, now signaling approaching conflict. He appeared in Jin's doorway, his face shadowed. We need to talk, he said, his voice low to avoid waking our son. I followed him to his home office, a minimalist space of glass and steel with views of Seoul's skyline. He poured himself a whiskey, Macallan, age 25 years, because Sungmin Park accepted only the best. He didn't offer me one. That was inappropriate, he said finally, sitting behind his desk like we were having a performance review. Walking out like that, creating a scene. I stared at him, the stranger I had married. Inappropriate? You forgot our son's birthday, told me you were working, then showed up at the same restaurant with your mistress. And my behavior is what's inappropriate. He sighed, The sound waited with impatience. Soo-yoon is a business associate. Park Technologies is launching a new lifestyle app, and she's a potential brand ambassador. Do you always place your hand on your business associates' backs? Do they all look at you the way she does? His expression hardened. You're being emotional. I'm being lied to, I countered. For how long? Sungmin? How long have you been seeing her? He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, studying it rather than meeting my eyes. This isn't productive. What matters is that you embarrassed me in front of people who matter. People who talk. People who matter. I repeated, the words bitter on my tongue. Unlike your wife and son. That's not what I said. His tone was clipped, controlled. Even now, he wouldn't raise his voice. Even now, he maintained perfect composure. It's what you've been showing us for years, I said, suddenly exhausted. When was the last time you attended one of Jin's school events? When was the last time you and I had a conversation that wasn't about your schedule or social obligations? He looked annoyed now. I provide everything for this family. This home, your lifestyle, Jin's education at Seoul International Academy. Do you know how hard I work to maintain all of this? And is Soo-yoon the reward for all that hard work? His eyes flashed. That's enough. No, it's not, I said, finding strength in my anger. You humiliated me tonight. Worse, you broke Jin's heart. He asked me why you don't love us anymore. For a moment, something flickered across Sungmin's face. Something almost like pain, but it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. Jin will understand when he's older. Success requires sacrifice. You're sacrificing your family for what? More money? More power? How much is enough? Sungmin. He stood, signaling the conversation was over. I have an early meeting tomorrow. We'll discuss this when you're calmer. As he walked past me, I caught the scent of unfamiliar perfume. Expensive. Floral. Not mine. I want to know the truth, I said to his back. Are you having an affair with Soo-yoon? He paused, one hand on the doorframe. Without turning, he said, Our marriage is what it is, Mia. We both know that. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with an answer that wasn't an answer at all. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in our expansive living room, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline, wondering how many secrets those lights concealed. How many women like me sat in luxury apartments, facing the reality of their beautiful, empty lives. By morning, something had shifted inside me. The pain was still there, raw and throbbing, but beneath it was something else. Determination. I would not be discarded. I would not allow Jin to grow up thinking his father's behavior was acceptable. I would not disappear quietly. While Sungmin was in the shower, I did something I had never done before. I took his phone. The Sungmin I married would have been outraged at this invasion of privacy. The Sungmin who had grown increasingly distant wouldn't even notice until he was already gone for the day. His passcode had always been Jin's birthday, an irony that wasn't lost on me now. I opened his messages, steeling myself for what I might find. There they were, hundreds of texts between him and Soo-yoon. Photos, plans, intimate conversations that made my stomach turn. The affair had been going on for nearly 8 months, around the time Sungmin started working late, more frequently. But the texts weren't what made my blood freeze in my veins. It was an email from his financial advisor, left open in his browser. Transfer of offshore assets complete. Cayman account secured. Prenuptial clause regarding custody can be activated once assets are protected. My hands shook as I took screenshots, forwarding everything to my personal email. Sungmin wasn't just having an affair. He was preparing to leave me, take Jin, and ensure I had nothing. The prenup. I remembered signing it days before our wedding, reassured by Sungmin that it was standard for someone in his position and just business formality. I hadn't read the fine print. I had trusted him. I returned his phone just as the shower shut off, my mind racing. I needed help. I needed to understand what I was facing. But most of all, I needed to protect Jin. After Sungmin left, without saying goodbye to either of us, I called the one person I knew could help. Dr. David Williams, Jin's pediatrician. The man who had been there the night at Hanul, who had witnessed my humiliation, and who had slipped me his personal card as we left. "If you need anything," he had said quietly. Anything at all. At the time, I had assumed it was pity. Now I wondered if it was something else. Recognition, perhaps. The understanding of someone who had seen this scenario before. Dr. Williams answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Park, I was hoping you'd call." "I need help," I said, the words foreign on my tongue. In 7 years of marriage to Sungmin, I had never admitted that simple truth aloud. "It's worse than I thought." He didn't hesitate. "I can meet you in an hour." "Not at my office. Somewhere private." We arranged to meet at a small cafe in Itaewon, far from Gangnam and the social circles where I might be recognized. I called Jin's nanny, arranged for her to take him to the park for the morning, then changed into the most nondescript clothes I owned. Jeans and a sweater that had never seen the inside of a designer showroom. Dr. Williams was waiting when I arrived, dressed casually but with the same calm confidence he showed in his medical practice. Up close, I noticed details I had missed before. The intelligence in his eyes, the compassionate set of his mouth, the way he seemed comfortable in his own skin in a way Sungmin never had, despite all his power. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "How are you holding up?" he asked, pushing a cup of tea toward me. "And how is Jean?" "He's confused. He keeps asking why his father was with that lady instead of celebrating his birthday." Dr. Williams nodded. "Children sense more than we give them credit for. Jean has probably been feeling the tension for some time." "He has," I admitted. "I just didn't want to see it." I took a breath, then explained everything: the affair, the offshore accounts, the prenuptial clause about custody. Dr. Williams listened without interruption, his expression growing more serious with each revelation. "Sungmin is methodical," I concluded. "He doesn't make mistakes. If he's preparing to leave, he'll have everything planned perfectly." "Not everything," Dr. Williams said quietly. "He didn't plan on being seen at Hanul. That was luck. Bad luck for him, I suppose. Sometimes luck is just opportunity meeting preparation." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Park, Mia, there's something you should know. Before I was a pediatrician, I practiced international family law. I specialized in cases involving cross-cultural marriages and custody disputes." I stared at him, trying to process this information. "You're a lawyer?" "I was. I switched to medicine after my own divorce." "Long story." He smiled briefly. "The point is, I understand exactly what you're facing, and I can help you navigate it." "Why would you?" I asked, suspicion rising. In Sungmin's world, no one offered help without expecting something in return. "Because what's happening to you happened to my sister," he said simply. "Her husband tried to take their children, hide assets, use the system against her. I couldn't help her then. I can help you now." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by guilt. "I can't pay you. Not yet." "If Sungmin is moving money offshore," Dr. Williams shook his head. "This isn't about money. This is about doing what's right for Jean. And for you." For the first time since walking into Hanul and seeing my husband with another woman, I felt a flicker of hope. Not much. Just enough to light the next step forward. "What do I do?" I asked. "First, we document everything. The affair, the financial movements, any changes in his behavior toward Jean. Second, we build your support system. Who can you trust completely?" I thought about it. Jaeun Lee, my friend. Maybe Mr. Kim, our driver. He's always been kind to Jean and me. Good. Keep this circle small but strong. Third, we need to understand exactly what that prenup says about custody. Korean family courts traditionally favor fathers, especially wealthy ones with family connections. We need to be prepared. The weight of what I was facing settled over me. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage anymore. I was fighting for my child. "Sungmin's family," I said slowly. "They've always been polite but distant. His mother never fully approved of him marrying an American. If he tells them he's leaving me, they'll close ranks, Dr. Williams finished. The Park family is influential. They'll protect their son and heir at all costs. So I'm fighting not just Sung-min, but his entire family, his wealth, his connections. The task seemed impossible. Dr. Williams reached across the table, his hand covering mine briefly. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that tears sprang to my eyes. "You're not fighting alone," he said firmly. "And Sung-min has made a critical mistake." "What's that?" "He underestimates you. Men like him always do." Over the next week, I became someone Sung-min wouldn't recognize. Gone was the polished, accommodating wife who arranged his social calendar and smiled at business dinners. In her place was a woman with purpose, cataloging 7 years of financial records, photographing documents, recording conversations. Sung-min barely noticed the change. He was rarely home, and when he was, he retreated to his home office, emerging only to sleep in the guest bedroom. No explanations, no apologies. Just cold distance that confirmed everything I suspected. Jean felt the shift in our home. He grew quieter, more watchful. One night, he crawled into my bed, his small body curled against mine. "Is Appa going to leave us?" he whispered into the darkness. I stroked his hair, searching for words that wouldn't lie but wouldn't crush him either. "I don't know what's going to happen, Gina, but I promise you that I will never leave you, no matter what." "Halmoni called today," he said, referring to Sung-min's mother. "She said I should come stay with her for a while, that you're not feeling well." My blood ran cold. "When did she call?" "After school. The nanny let me answer." So it had begun. Sung-min's family was already preparing to separate me from my son. I held Jean tighter, fear and rage mingling in my chest. "You're staying right here with me," I said fiercely. "And I'm perfectly healthy." The next day, I received a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. About Sung-min. Meet me at the Shilla Hotel, room 1422, 3 p.m. S.Y. Suyun." The mistress wanted to meet. Every instinct told me to ignore it, to protect what little dignity I had left. But Dr. Williams's voice echoed in my mind. "Information is power. Gather it wherever you can." The Shilla was one of Seoul's most luxurious hotels, a place where the ultra-wealthy conducted their affairs, both business and personal. Away from prying eyes, I dressed carefully in a navy blazer and jeans, my hair pulled back, sunglasses concealing my face. The last thing I needed was to be recognized as Park Sung-min's wife entering a hotel room. Suyun opened the door immediately when I knocked. Up close, she was even more beautiful than on screen, perfect skin, delicate features, the kind of natural elegance that made my careful grooming seem like a child playing dress-up. She was younger than me, fresher, unmarked by disappointment. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice surprisingly subdued. "Please sit down." The suite was extravagant, clearly paid for with money I once thought of as ours. I remained standing. "Why am I here, Suyun? To hear how sorry you are? To be told it wasn't personal?" She flinched slightly. "I deserve that. But no, that's not why I asked you to come." She reached for a folder on the desk. "You need to see these." Inside were documents, financial statements, emails, photographs, evidence of something far worse than an affair. "Sung-min is under investigation," Suyun said quietly. "Financial crimes, money laundering through his charitable foundation, tax evasion, possibly bribery of government officials." I stared at her, trying to absorb this new shock. "How do you know this?" "Because he tried to use me as a shield. The brand ambassador story wasn't completely false. He's been transferring money through accounts connected to me, claiming they're legitimate business expenses. If the investigation goes forward, I'll be implicated too." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, suspicion rising. "Why not go to the authorities?" "Because he has powerful friends. Because without proof that I was manipulated, I'll go down with him." She hesitated, And because what he's doing to you and your son is wrong. I didn't know he was planning to take Jean from you. My breath caught. He told you that? She nodded. He said once the divorce is finalized, Jean would live with him and his family. That you were unstable, unfit. She looked away. I believed him. I thought I was going to be helping a child escape a bad situation. Anger flared, hot and bright. And now I see what he really is. Suyun's perfect composure cracked slightly. He lied to both of us, Mia. To all of us. He told me your marriage was in name only. That you stayed for the money. That you didn't love him or Jean. The cruelty of it stole my breath. Sungmin hadn't just betrayed our marriage. He had rewritten it completely. I've made copies of everything, Suyun continued. Records of transfers, conversations where he outlined how he was hiding assets from you. If you need me to testify, I will. I studied her, looking for deception. Why would you risk your career for this? For me, she met my gaze steadily. Because I know what it's like to be used by powerful men. And because no child should be taken from their mother as a trophy. As I left the Shilla with a folder that could destroy Sungmin's carefully constructed world, I realized the game had changed entirely. This wasn't just about a marriage breaking. This was about criminal activity, about a man willing to sacrifice anyone. His wife, his mistress, perhaps even his son, to protect his empire and his reputation. For the first time, I felt truly afraid, not of losing Sungmin, but of what he might do when cornered. The documents Suyun provided confirmed everything Dr. Williams and I had suspected, and revealed worse. Sungmin hadn't just been preparing to leave me. He had been systematically destroying my financial future for over a year, draining accounts I had access to, transferring assets to his family members, creating a paper trail that painted me as irresponsible with money. And the prenuptial agreement, the one I had signed trusting his assurances, contained a poison pill I never knew existed. If Sungmin could prove I was mentally unstable or morally compromised, he could claim full custody of Jean with no visitation rights. He's building a case against you, Dr. Williams said grimly when we reviewed everything. Those calls from his mother to Jean, the financial manipulation, the rumors he's probably already spreading in your social circle. He's isolating you before he strikes. Can he do that? Take Jean completely? With his family's connections and wealth? It's possible. Korean courts still heavily favor fathers, especially from prominent families. So what do? We fight back, on all fronts, with evidence of his financial crimes, his affair, and most importantly, evidence of your bond with Jean. He leaned forward. Mia, you need to prepare for the possibility that Sungmin won't just try to take Jean legally. He might try to take him physically, to remove him from your care before any hearing. My throat tightened with panic. You think he'd take Jean? Men like Sungmin don't lose gracefully. When they realize they're cornered, they take what matters most. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me start awake, convinced Sungmin was coming for Jean. I finally moved a chair in front of my son's bedroom door and sat there until dawn, watching him sleep, vowing silently that no one would take him from me. When morning came, I made a decision. I called Jae-eun. I need somewhere safe for Jean and me, I said without preamble. Somewhere Sungmin won't think to look. Jae-eun didn't hesitate. My grandmother's house in Bukshin. It's been empty since she moved to the nursing home. No one would connect it to you. Within hours, I had packed essential items for Jean and myself. Not the designer clothes or expensive jewelry that marked my life as Mrs. Park, but practical things. Comfort items for Jean. Documents. The evidence against Sungmin. I called Jin's school, claiming he had a doctor's appointment. I texted the nanny that I was taking Jean shopping for the day. I left everything else behind. The penthouse with its cold perfection, the life I had tried so desperately to fit into, the marriage that had been dying for years. Jae-eun's grandmother's house was a traditional hanok in one of Seoul's oldest neighborhoods. Small, simply furnished, with paper doors and a courtyard garden. Nothing like the modernist luxury Jean and I were accustomed to. But as Jean explored the new space, exclaiming over the stepping stones in the garden and the low tables where we would eat. I felt something I hadn't felt in our penthouse for years. Safety. Dr. Williams arrived that evening with food and news. Sungmin knows you've left. He's furious. He's already contacted his lawyers claiming you've kidnapped Jean. Fear clenched my stomach. Kidnapped? He's my son. In Korean law, removing a child from the family home without the father's consent can be construed that way, especially with his family's influence. Dr. Williams set down bags of groceries. But we anticipated this. Jaeun has already filed emergency papers through my contacts. You have temporary custody until a hearing. When is the hearing? 2 weeks. Sungmin's lawyers will try to delay, to wear you down. They'll offer settlements that seem generous but take Jean. Don't accept anything. I nodded, determination hardening within me. I won't. Not even if he offers everything we have. Jean is non-negotiable. Dr. Williams smiled then, a warm expression that reached his eyes. That's why you'll win, Mia. Because for you, this isn't about money or pride. It's about love. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange bubble. Jean adapted to our temporary home with the resilience of childhood, delighted by the historic neighborhood, the traditional tea shop down the street, the old woman who gave him rice cakes when we passed her door. Sungmin's fury manifested in escalating tactics. First came the concerned calls from friends, relaying that Sungmin was worried about my mental health. Then came the freeze on all accounts connected to my name. Finally, a summons from his family. His mother requesting my presence at the family home to discuss Jin's future. I declined. Through Dr. Williams, I communicated only what was legally required. No more. Then came the unexpected. A call from Sungmin's assistant. Mrs. Park, I need to warn you. Mr. Park is planning to bring his mother to Jin's school tomorrow to remove him. They've already arranged with the headmaster. My blood ran cold. Why are you telling me this? A pause. Because I have a son too. I thanked her, then immediately called Dr. Williams. They're going to take Jean tomorrow. He arrived within an hour, legal papers in hand. We're filing for an emergency protection order. Jean doesn't leave your side until the hearing. That night, as Jean slept peacefully in the small bedroom of the hammock, I sat in the courtyard with Dr. Williams, the moon casting silver light over the ancient stones. Why did you really help me? I asked quietly. It can't just be because of your sister. He was silent for a moment, then said, When I saw you at Hanul that night, you reminded me of someone. My mother. She married my father for love, built a life she thought was secure. Then one day he left. No warning, no explanation, just gone, leaving her with 2 children and a mountain of debt. What happened to her? She fought, like you're fighting. She worked 3 jobs, put herself through community college while raising us alone. He smiled, a mixture of pride and old pain. She's the strongest person I've ever known. And your father? Last I heard, he had another family somewhere. Another life he'll probably discard when it becomes inconvenient. Dr. Williams looked at me directly. Men like my father, like Sungmin, they don't change, Mia. They just find new people to disappoint. His words settled over me, not with bitterness but with clarity. Sungmin wouldn't change. He wouldn't suddenly remember his love for Jean, wouldn't wake up remorseful about his betrayal. The man I married existed only in my memory now, if he had ever existed at all. I don't want Jean to become like him, I whispered. Cold, calculating, seeing people as assets to be managed. He won't, Dr. Williams said with certainty. Because he has you. The day of the hearing arrived with autumn rain washing over Seoul, turning the city into a blur of gray and silver. Jean stayed with Jaeun while Dr. Williams accompanied me to the courthouse, a modernist structure of glass and concrete that seemed designed to intimidate. Sungmin was already there with his legal team, fursuited men with identical expressions of practiced concern. Behind them sat his parents, his mother's face a mask of disapproval, his father stoic as always. The message was clear. The full weight of the Park family stood against me. I had Dr. Williams, Jaehoon's husband, a corporate attorney who had agreed to represent me, and one unexpected ally, Soo-yoon, seated quietly at the back of the courtroom. When our eyes met, she nodded slightly. She had kept her word. The hearing began with Sungmin's lawyers painting me as unstable, financially irresponsible, and worst of all, attempting to separate Jin from his cultural heritage by Americanizing him. They presented evidence of my erratic behavior. Leaving the family home suddenly, withdrawing Jin from school, refusing reasonable communication with my husband. They spoke of the Park family's standing in Korean society, of Sungmin's ability to provide Jin with every advantage, of the importance of maintaining Jin's connection to his Korean identity. They mentioned my emotional outbursts and irrational jealousy. Not once did they mention Sungmin's affair, his financial crimes, or his absence from Jin's life. When it was our turn, Jaehoon's husband presented evidence methodically. School records showing I was the only parent who attended Jin's events. Financial records revealing Sungmin's systematic draining of our accounts. Testimonies from Jin's teachers about my involvement in his education. My efforts to ensure he learned Korean traditions. My dedication to raising him with both cultures. Then came Soo-yoon. As she approached the stand, Sungmin's expression changed from confident to alarmed. She testified calmly about their relationship, about his admissions regarding financial misconduct, about his plan to separate me from Jin. Mr. Park told me explicitly that he intended to take his son and ensure Mrs. Park had no access to him, she said, her voice steady. He said, and I quote, "Once the divorce is final, Mia will have nothing. Not my money, not my name, and certainly not my son." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Sungmin's mother's face hardened into granite. His lawyers conferred urgently. The final testimony came from Jin himself, interviewed privately by the judge. I had prepared him only by saying, "Tell the truth about what makes you happy, what scares you, what you want." When the judge returned, her expression gave nothing away. She spoke first to Sungmin. "Mr. Park, this court finds significant evidence of financial misconduct, emotional manipulation, and a pattern of absence from your son's life. Your family's standing, while noteworthy, does not override a child's need for stability and genuine care." She turned to me. "Mrs. Park, while your actions in removing your son from the family home were concerning, this court recognizes they were taken out of legitimate fear for his welfare and your own." The verdict came like thunder after lightning. Primary custody of Jin Park is awarded to his mother, Mia Park, with supervised visitation for Sungmin Park pending resolution of the ongoing financial investigation. The Park family will have no unsupervised access to Jin until further notice. Sungmin's face drained of color. His mother rose abruptly and left the courtroom. His lawyers immediately began talking about appeals, about higher courts, about connections they would leverage. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was thinking of Jin, waiting with Jaehoon, unaware that his world had just been protected rather than torn apart. As I left the courthouse, Sungmin caught up to me, his composure finally cracking. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You think you've won, but my family won't allow this embarrassment. We built everything you've ever had. We can take it all away." I looked at him, really looked at the man I had once loved enough to follow across an ocean, to bear a child with, to build a life around. In his eyes, I saw nothing but cold rage and wounded pride. No love for Jin, no concern for his welfare, just anger that something he considered his possession had been denied him. "You already took it all away," I said quietly. "The day you forgot your son existed until you saw him across a restaurant. The day you chose your reputation over his heart. Don't be dramatic, Mia. This was never about Jin. This was about you not accepting your place." "You're right about one thing," I replied. "This isn't over. Not while Jin needs protection from becoming what you are." I walked away then, leaving him with his lawyers, his family name, his empire built on deception. I had something more valuable. My son, my freedom, and for the first time in 7 years, my own voice. 6 months passed. Autumn turned to winter, winter to spring. Seoul bloomed with cherry blossoms. their pale pink petals drifting through air that felt somehow lighter than before. Jean and I didn't return to the penthouse. Instead, we found a small but beautiful apartment near his school, close enough for him to walk there with me each morning. He missed some things about our old life: the view from the 40th floor, the swimming pool in the building, the expensive toys that had filled his playroom. But he didn't miss the silence, the tension, the feeling of walking on eggshells around his father. Sungmin's empire began to crumble as the financial investigation expanded. Park Technology's stock plummeted. Investors withdrew. Partners distanced themselves. The criminal charges weren't public yet, but in Seoul's business circles, whispers traveled faster than official announcements. His family closed ranks around him as they always had. His mother called once, not to check on Jin's welfare but to inform me that the Parks take care of their own, and that I would regret tarnishing our family name. I thanked her politely for her concern and blocked her number. Sungmin attended exactly 2 supervised visits with Jin before deciding they were beneath his dignity. Jin was hurt at first, but less than I expected. Appa was always leaving anyway, he said with the simple wisdom of children. Now he just doesn't come home first. My life changed in ways I hadn't anticipated. With Dr. Williams's encouragement, I revived dreams I had abandoned when I married Sungmin. I began consulting for educational technology companies, using my UCLA degree that had gathered dust for 7 years. I started a small cultural program for international children, helping them navigate the complex waters of dual identity. And I found my voice, not the polished, careful one I had used as Mrs. Park, but my real voice. Sometimes angry, sometimes sad, sometimes joyful, but always authentically mine. Dr. Williams, David as I now called him, remained a steady presence in our lives. Not pushing, not demanding, just there. He took Jean to baseball games. He helped with homework. He brought soup when we were sick and celebrated with us when we had victories. One evening, as cherry blossoms swirled outside our window and Jean slept peacefully in his room, David and I sat on my small balcony, talking about everything and nothing. Jean asked me something interesting today, I said, watching the city lights flicker on as darkness fell. What was that? He asked if you were going to be his new father. I glanced at David, gauging his reaction. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "What did you tell him? That relationships don't work that way. That people don't replace each other like parts in a machine. That whatever happens between us, you'll always be someone who cares about him for exactly who he is." David reached for my hand, his touch warm and steady. "And what about you, Mia? What do you want?" I thought about it. About the journey from the woman who had sat frozen in Hanul restaurant watching her marriage shatter to the woman I was becoming. About the pain that had carved new strength into me. About the future I was building step by careful step. "I want to never again make myself small for someone else's comfort," I said finally. "I want Jean to grow up seeing what real respect looks like. I want to remember who I was before I became Mrs. Park, and discover who I can be now." David smiled, understanding in his eyes. "And is there room in that discovery for someone who sees exactly how extraordinary you are? Not the polished, perfect Mia Park of Gangnam society. The real Mia, who fought like hell for her son and won." I looked out at Seoul, the city that had almost swallowed me, that had witnessed my near destruction and my rebirth. The city where my son was both Korean and American. A bridge between worlds rather than torn between them. "Yes," I said simply. "I think there is." The cherry blossoms continued to fall, covering Seoul in delicate pink snow. Somewhere across the city, Sungmin was facing the consequences of his choices. Somewhere, his mother was preserving family honor at all costs. Somewhere, Suyun was rebuilding her own life, free from his manipulation. And here, in this moment, I was finally writing my own story. Not as an accessory to a powerful man's life. Not as a foreigner trying to belong. Not as a perfect wife or mother. Simply as Mia. Imperfect. Resilient. Free. The woman whose Korean billionaire husband forgot their son's birthday and walked into a restaurant with his mistress. The woman who refused to disappear. The woman who discovered her own worth wasn't measured in designer clothes or social standing or even marriage vows, but in the courage to stand alone if standing alone meant standing in truth. That was the real story, and it was just beginning.